The reek of motor oil and metal dust still clung to my work shirt when I rolled into my driveway. 12 hours at the shop, dead on my feet, with exactly one thing on my mind: my baby. A 1967 Camaro SS I'd spent a year and a half resurrecting from oxidized junk into rolling art. I hit the garage remote. The door groaned upward, and there she was, chrome bright enough to blind you, hugger orange paint so deep it looked like you could dive into it. That's when everything detonated. Somebody call 911. He's stealing my car. My HOA president and neighbor, Brenda Wilson, came charging across the lawn like she'd been fired out of a cannon. Phone already glued to her ear. Yes, there's a black man stealing my car right now. Send everyone. Sirens were already whining in the distance. She dialed before she even opened her mouth to me. I was standing in my own driveway, keys in my hand, looking at my own car, about to be arrested for stealing it. What would you do if your neighbor sicked the cops on you in your own driveway? Drop a flag emoji. Tell me where you're watching from. Let's see how far this craziness travels. My name's Marcus. I'm a third-generation mechanic. My grandfather taught my father taught me, and for 60 years our families kept this town's engines alive. When my divorce finalized last spring, my ex suddenly decided grease under fingernails wasn't attractive. I scraped together what was left and bought a small place in Willowbrook Estates. Middle-class HOA subdivision, perfectly trimmed lawns, matching mailboxes, and neighbors who supposedly kept to themselves. That's what my real estate agent promised. Anyway, the Camaro wasn't some midlife crisis toy. I'd found her at an estate sale 18 months earlier. More rust than car, the kind of hulk most people would tow to the scrap yard for $30. Underneath all that rot, though, I saw pure American muscle waiting to breathe again. $3,200 in cash later, she was mine. Every weekend after that became a one-man resurrection project. New 350 small block. Rebuilt turbo 400 transmission. Suspension completely redone. The paint alone took 4 months. Sand, prime, block, wet sand, repeat, until the hugger orange gleamed bright enough to signal distant aircraft. I documented everything. Photos of every bolt and gasket for insurance. Receipts in a 3-ring binder thick as an old phone book. Saturday mornings smelled like primer, metal shavings, and cold coffee abandoned on my workbench, while I got lost in the rhythm of wrench and ratchet. Enter Brenda Wilson, the fever dream of every petty HOA ever imagined. Brenda moved into Willowbrook 5 years earlier and immediately crowned herself queen of the cul-de-sac. She sold real estate, drove a white BMW detailed more faithfully than some people bathe, wore manicured nails that had never known labor, hair held aloft through feats of chemical engineering, and a smile that could curdle antifreeze. She'd been HOA president for 3 years, unopposed because nobody else wanted to volunteer for neighborhood Gestapo duty. Her gift was weaponized paperwork. Trash cans left out 12 minutes past pickup? Citation. Fence posts measuring 2 1/8 inches instead of the 2-inch requirement. Violation. Mailbox fonts not Willowbrook approved? Warning. She once knocked on my door with an actual ruler in hand to inform me my grass was allegedly over the 2.5-inch max, just upholding community standards. She said with that factory issue smile. 2 weeks before the garage door fiasco, she'd stalked over while I was bleeding brake lines. Apparently the whine of my impact wrench was too much for her refined ears. Excuse me, there's a noise ordinance. No power tools after 6 p.m., she announced. I wiped my hands on a rag and kept it civil. City ordinance allows hobby work until 9. I can show you the paperwork. Her smile went from plastic to permafrost. We'll see about that. This kind of industrial activity affects property values. The way she said industrial activity, you'd think I was cooking meth, not restoring automotive history. The day everything really blew up started with Brenda's monthly pool party spectacle. Saturday morning, her backyard filled up with neighborhood wives drinking mimosas, pretending to care about each other's vacation slideshows. Laughter, thin and fake, floated through my garage wall. Then her voice cut through it like fingernails on glass. Oh, that's my new Camaro. Just bought it from a classic dealer in Phoenix. 45 grand, but worth every penny. They're shipping it next week. My socket slipped from my hand and clanged off the concrete. She was scrolling through photos on her phone. Pictures of a car identical to mine. Hugger Orange 67 SS. Same stripe package, same wheels. Her guests cooed while she soaked in their admiration like she'd personally invented gasoline. That afternoon I needed brake fluid. I fired up my baby and eased out of the driveway. The 350's rumble bounced off the houses. Deep, heavy, perfect. When I got back an hour later, Brenda stood in her driveway like a lawn gnome of pure fury. Arms crossed, face red, eyes locked on my car like a hawk tracking a mouse. I gave a polite nod. Nothing. She just drilled holes through the Camaro with those predator eyes. I'd bet money she spent that night online, building herself a fantasy, scrolling listings, convincing herself I'd somehow stolen her dream car. By morning, she'd upgraded from annoying neighbor to something a lot more dangerous. A Karen with a mission. So when 2 patrol cars skidded into my driveway that evening, lights strobing off my garage door, I knew my quiet Saturday was toast. For officers spilled out like they were responding to a bank robbery. According to Brenda's Oscar Level 911 performance, they basically were. Officer Rodriguez, maybe 50, kind-eyed, moved with the tired calm of someone who'd seen every brand of neighborhood insanity. His partner, Officer Morgan, younger and built like he bench-pressed Crown Vics, flanked him, notebook poised. "Evening, sir. We had a report of a stolen vehicle at this address," Rodriguez said. The absurdity hit me so hard I almost laughed. Stolen vehicle? This is my car. In my garage. At my house. That's like accusing me of stealing my own fridge. Brenda appeared beside them like a bad magic trick, knuckles white around her phone. "That's him. That's the thief," she shrieked, pointing. "I just bought that Camaro yesterday for $45,000. I pulled a slow breath, tasting the faint trace of exhaust hanging in the garage. My father's voice came back clear as ever. Documentation beats desperation every time. "Officers," I said, keeping my tone even. "I can prove ownership right now." I pulled out my phone and opened the photo album I'd built across 18 months. Frame by frame. Rusted shell, bare chassis, primer, paint, engine install, interior, final touches. Rodriguez studied the progression, eyebrows climbing as he scrolled. "This is your work?" he asked, zooming in on the engine bay shot. "Family business. My grandfather would haunt me if I did sloppy work." Meanwhile, Brenda spiraled. "He's lying. Look at these." She shoved a handful of printed photos at one of the other officers. Chan, the note-taker, clearly yanked from some dealer site minutes before her call. "I wired the money yesterday. They're shipping it this week." Chun examined them with all the enthusiasm of someone reviewing a tax audit. Generic dealer stock photos. No VIN, no date, no paperwork. Just glossy images of an orange Camaro that could have been taken anytime, anywhere. "Ma'am," Chun asked, "do you have a bill of sale? Wire confirmation. Dealer contact." It's being processed," Brenda stammered, her face turning the color of emergency vehicles. The dealer said classic car paperwork takes time. While she improvised, I dove into my garage drawers like I was looking for buried treasure and came up with the binder. "Here's the DMV registration," I said, handing it to Rodriguez. "Registered to me 18 months ago. This address. VIN matches." His flashlight ran over the form. Names, dates, stamp. Everything lined up. And the insurance policy. I flipped to the next plastic sleeve. Progressive made me document the whole restoration for agreed value. Chun jotted notes. Brenda's story frayed. "He forged that. He's probably part of some identity theft ring," she snapped, voice high and breaking. That was my cue for the trump card. From the back of the binder, I pulled a yellowed sheet of legal paper. Edges softened from being handled. 1967 Chevrolet Camaro. Condition as is. Extensive rust. $3,200 cash. Buyer assumes all responsibility. Signed in wobbly cursive. Eleanor Hutchinson, estate sale. Phone number. Date, 18 months ago. Rodriguez studied it like he'd uncovered a relic. This is the original bill of sale? Eleanor was selling her late husband's project cars, I said. 93 years old. Sweetest woman you could ever meet. Made me promise to bring it back finished. Silence fell. You could hear someone's sprinkler 2 houses over. Chun closed the notebook. Ma'am, this gentleman has a documented chain of ownership going back over a year, they said flatly. Your evidence is internet printouts. Rodriguez's tone shifted to that quiet register cops save for fragile situations. Ma'am, you should know filing a false police report is a misdemeanor in this state. People do serve time for it. My dad was a prosecutor for 30 years. I'd seen exactly how that played out. The blood drained out of Brenda's face. There must be some misunderstanding, she stammered. Car buying is stressful. Paperwork is confusing. But her eyes, as she headed back toward her house, were pure calculation. She watched me from behind her front window as the officers left, studying me like an opponent across a chessboard. That was not the end. That was the opening bell. Monday morning hit with all the subtlety of a backfiring diesel. I shuffled to my mailbox in yesterday's work clothes, coffee in hand, and spotted the envelope that screamed trouble even from the outside. Official HOA notice of covenant violation. Unauthorized commercial vehicle storage. Apparently, my work van, a perfectly normal Ford Transit with Rodriguez Family Auto painted down the side, violated community standards. $200 fine. 48 hours to comply. Brenda's signature at the bottom, a flourish like a death sentence. Through the kitchen window, I watched her power walk past my driveway, glaring at my van like it was desecrating sacred ground. Her jog route had somehow repositioned itself to pass my place 17 times each morning. I counted. Most homeowners don't realize HOA covenants are binding contracts, not suggestions from overzealous control freaks. My divorce lawyer had drilled that into me. Everything leaves a paper trail and paper doesn't lie. On my lunch break, I drove to the county courthouse and dug through records until my eyes blurred. That's where I found it. Willowbrook's commercial vehicle restrictions went into effect in 2020. I'd bought my van in 2017. Anything owned before a rule change is automatically grandfathered, legally protected from retroactive enforcement. Brenda had no authority here. None. I wrote a response that would have made my grandfather proud. Calm, factual, backed by documentation. I attached copies of my van's purchase and registration and hand-delivered it to the HOA management office. The receptionist's eyes widened as she read. "Oh, wow," she whispered, like she'd just witnessed a collision in slow motion. "Mrs. Wilson isn't going to like this." She was right. By Wednesday, my mailbox had turned into Brenda's complaint dispenser. 3 more violation notices appeared. Supposed oil stains on the driveway, I pressure-washed monthly, strong automotive odors from my garage, apparently WD-40 offends her, and noise violations, even though every timestamp fell within legal hours. She was carpet-bombing me with paperwork, hoping something would stick. That's when I made the smartest purchase of the entire conflict. I turned my house into Fort Knox. 4 high-def security cameras, night vision, cloud storage. Angles on the driveway, front yard, side yard, backyard. If a mosquito landed on my mailbox, I'd have it in 1080p. The footage showed Brenda had picked up a new hobby, perimeter surveillance. Every morning she would patrol our shared fence line, snapping photos, measuring distances with a collapsible yardstick that probably cost more than my groceries. She turned neighbor watching into an Olympic event. Thursday evening, I got the piece de resistance. An emergency board meeting notice shoved in my mailbox at 4 p.m. for a 7 p.m. meeting. Just enough to be technically legal and practically impossible to prepare for. I showed up at the community center expecting a kangaroo court. I found 3 women at a folding table. Brenda at the head, her skittish Lieutenant Clara, who apologized every time she inhaled, and Janet, whose primary job seemed to be nodding whenever Brenda spoke. "Where's the rest of the board?" I asked, taking a seat opposite them. Brenda's smile was vacuum-sealed. This is sufficient for tonight's business. We're implementing an emergency ban on all automotive repair activities, effective immediately. Past violations carry a $500 fine. I pulled out my phone and opened the HOA bylaws I'd been studying all afternoon. Knowledge is power, but targeted knowledge is artillery. Interesting, I replied. But Section 4.3 requires 7 days' notice for voting matters. I scrolled. And 4.7 says you need a quorum of 5 board members to take official action. I looked around the empty room. I see 3, which gives this meeting all the legal authority of a book club. Clara flushed. This is, just a preliminary. And Section 2.9 states that invalid meetings can create personal liability for board members. I added, thought you might want to know that. Brenda's composure cracked. You think you're so clever, don't you? She hissed. Coming into our neighborhood with your people and your activities. The venom in your people hit like a slap. I kept my voice level. I think I'm a homeowner who reads contracts before signing them. Radical, I know. That night, neighbor Tom, mid-40s postal worker, calm eyes, knocked on my door. Most of us think she's lost it, he said, almost embarrassed. Coffee tomorrow? I think it's time we talk. Friday morning, 7:15, the doorbell dragged me out of the shower. City Code Enforcement. Dave Martinez, clipboard in hand, wearing the 1,000-yard stare of a man who'd refereed too many HOA wars. Sorry to bother you early, Mr. Rodriguez, he said. Anonymous complaint about an unlicensed commercial auto repair operation. Mind if I have a look? I led him to the garage. Morning light spilled over my sanctuary. Tools on pegboards lined up like soldiers, floors you could eat off, the smell of clean oil and metal polish. Dave's shoulders dropped the second he stepped inside. Hell, this is cleaner than my mechanic's place, he muttered, dragging a finger across the workbench. No dust. What do you do for a living? He asked. Family shop. This is weekends only. No customers. Just hobby. He scribbled a note while eyeing my engine hoist. Anonymous caller claimed you were running a full-blown business. I see no customer cars, no signage, no cash transactions. You're fine. He paused at his truck door. Off the record? This is my 4th trip to this subdivision this month. Same voice. Different complaints. Lady needs a new pastime. The next attack came by certified mail. A letter from my insurance company. Brenda had contacted Progressive, claiming my garage was an imminent fire hazard to adjoining properties. They strongly recommended an inspection, or they'd consider terminating coverage. My agent, Bill, showed up Tuesday afternoon. I braced for bureaucracy. Instead, he spent the first 10 minutes gawking at the Camaro. Good God! Look at that engine bay, he breathed, taking photos like a tourist. He inspected the shop, the extinguishers, the grounded outlets, the chemical storage. Someone's trying to nail you, he said, signing the report. Your fire safety exceeds commercial standards. Half these houses are ticking bombs with propane next to space heaters. Progressive's legal team sent Brenda a cease and desist. Stop filing bogus claims or face fraud charges. But Brenda had discovered the nuclear weapon of modern conflict. Social media. Overnight, the Willowbrook Neighborhood Watch Facebook group appeared like a rash. Brenda's opening post. Photos of my van and garage, captioned with sugar-coated poison. Just trying to keep our community beautiful, she wrote. Some activities might be more suited to industrial zones. Don't you think? Tom showed me the screenshots over coffee. Cheeks flushed. 23 people joined in the first hour. It's like watching a dumpster fire. You don't want to look, but you can't stop. The comments turned into a brawl. Some neighbors defended me, sharing their own Brenda encounters. Others lurked, clearly weighing the cost of crossing the HOA queen. Then she started deleting critical comments. That backfired instantly. Nothing rallies people like obvious censorship. Factions formed. Arguments spilled from Facebook onto sidewalks. Sunday morning, I stepped out to find my driveway sprinkled with roofing nails. A couple of dozen, scattered just carefully enough to shred tires. The cameras didn't catch a clear face, The person wore a dark hoodie, but the quick, tight, angry stride was familiar. Brenda's power walk had a signature rhythm. Officer Morgan took my report seriously, snapping photos, bagging nails. "This is a classic escalation pattern," he said. "Document everything. These kinds of cases simmer, then blow all at once." Reviewing playback later, I saw something that made my stomach knot. Brenda's morning walks had evolved into methodical recon missions. She paced every inch of our shared property line, measuring, photographing, remeasuring. Angles, distances. This wasn't random harassment. She was surveying for some larger move. Wednesday brought an anonymous letter in my mailbox. Plain white paper. No return address. "Your kind doesn't belong here. Leave on your own or things will get worse." The paper stock and printer pattern matched my HOA notices exactly. Detective Martinez from the city police, no relation to Dave, added the letter to my growing file. "Threatening anonymous letters like this qualify for hate crime enhancements under state and federal law," she said. "We're building quite a case against your neighbor." That night, Tom expanded our coffee chats into a small gathering. 6 households, all with Brenda scars. Mike, a semi-retired corporate lawyer, had been fined for using an unauthorized mailbox font. Sarah, a forensic accountant, had racked up violations for planting flowers without prior architectural approval. Linda, a high school teacher, had clashed with Brenda over kids' chalk drawings on the sidewalk. Carlos, a contractor, got dinged for a ladder leaning against the side of his house too long. "Individual complaints get brushed off," Tom said. "But this is a pattern. Time for coordinated resistance." The county courthouse basement smelled like old coffee and dust. I spent 3 hours there, combing through Willowbrook's corporate filings and financials. What I found made winning the lottery look boring. The HOA ledgers read like a crash course in embezzlement. $15,000 paid to B&B Property Solutions for vague consulting. $8,500 to Brenda's Best Gardens for landscaping nobody could remember seeing. $12,000 to Wilson and Associates for legal services that appeared right as Brenda's divorce began. All 3 vendors shared the same address, 1247 Maple Lane. Brenda's house. A quick state business search confirmed it. B&B Property Solutions. Sole proprietor, Brenda Wilson. Established 6 months after she filed for divorce. Brenda's Best Gardens. Dissolved last year after reporting no real work. Wilson and Associates, her ex-husband's old firm. Our HOA president had been siphoning money out of the neighborhood budget like a suburban cartel boss, funneling around $78,000 into her own legal fights over 2 years. More disturbing than the theft was the pattern behind it. Comparing violation dates to property sales, I realized Brenda had a system. She would target specific homeowners with relentless citations, drive them to sell below market in frustration, then land the listing as their helpful real estate agent. 3 families in 1 year. The Hendersons got non-stop complaints about their son's basketball hoop creating excessive noise until they gave up and sold for $40,000 under appraisal. The Patels endured weekly violations for culturally inappropriate cooking odors that didn't fit community standards. My case fit her template perfectly. Single guy, no kids, just out of a divorce. Great house worth about $380,000. Ideal candidate to pressure into a distressed sale. Then I found the kicker, buried in foreclosure notices. Brenda's own place, 1247 Maple, was in default. She owed $23,000 in unpaid HOA dues to her own association, back taxes, legal fees, credit card judgments. Her foreclosure hearing was set for 4 weeks away. Suddenly, her desperation made sense. The harassment, the false police calls, the frantic need to control the narrative. She wasn't just on a power trip. She was drowning. And my property was her last potential payoff before the bank took her castle. I copied everything. Receipts, ledgers, business registrations. $17 worth of photocopies I'd have gladly paid triple for. On the way back to my truck, I called Tom. "You better sit down," I told him. Because what I just found changes everything. Saturday morning, Tom's garage turned into mission control. The air smelled like coffee, metal, and the sharp tang of payback. Tom had pulled together a motley dream team. Sarah Morgan, forensic accountant with a sixth sense for cooked books. Mike Patterson, corporate shark who considered eviscerating people in depositions a leisure activity. Linda Martinez, high school teacher whose organizational skills could run NASA. Carlos Mendez, contractor who knew every code loophole in 3 counties. Sarah spread Brenda's financials out like a crime scene tech. "Holy hell," she muttered. "This isn't even subtle. She's robbing you with a brick, not a scalpel." Mike pushed his glasses up. 78,000 in provable fraud, he said. Paper trails clean, plus documented harassment. Prosecutors dream about this kind of case. Linda started building a color-coded timeline on poster board, harassment campaigns overlaid with home sales. "Look at the pattern," she said. "Find vulnerable families. Turn the screws. They sell low. Her investors swoop in." Carlos whistled. "And paying divorce lawyers out of HOA funds? That's not clever. That's dumb and criminal." We built our battle plan in 3 pillars. Operation Documentation Fortress. Carlos volunteered to help everyone install cameras, motion sensors, and cloud backups. "If she even side-eyes your driveway, we'll catch it," he promised. Linda designed standardized incident reports. Dates, times, witnesses, photos, citation copies, police case numbers. "We're building a file that could survive a nuclear blast," she said. Sarah started assembling an independent audit that would stand up in federal court. Operation Legal Annihilation. Mike laid out HOA corporate law like he was describing a board game he knew he'd win. "Board members have fiduciary duties," he said. "Every fraudulent check she signed is personal liability. She thinks the HOA shield protects her. It doesn't." Annual board elections were a month away. 3 seats up. Tom, Sarah, and Mike would run as a slate. If they won, we'd control the board and the purse strings. "Criminal complaint gets filed Tuesday," Mike went on, shuffling documents like cards. "Embezzlement, harassment, false police reports. She's looking at a buffet of felonies. Operation Public Humiliation." Linda took point. Flyers with plain language breakdowns of the theft. Social media posts. Neighborhood conversations. All facts, no rhetoric. "Average theft per household is close to $2,000, she said. "When people realize she's been robbing them while lecturing about trash cans, they'll grab torches." Carlos proposed the media angle. HOA president steals neighborhood money while racially harassing neighbor. Channel 7's investigative department loves that kind of catnip. Sarah had already reached out to Janet Mills, their Bulldog reporter. "She wants it," Sarah said. "Badly." Mike added the final twist. Brenda's real estate license renewal was in 6 weeks. Any fraud conviction meant permanent revocation. "Financial ruin plus career death," he said, smiling. "We don't just stop her. We end her ability to do this anywhere else." Our strategy was simple. Let her think she was winning. Keep my routine. Say little. Act like she was still in control. Meanwhile, we'd quietly stack evidence and build community support. Classic rope-a-dope. Timeline lined up like a choreographed demolition. Audit results in 2 weeks. Brenda's foreclosure hearing in 3. Board elections in 4. License renewal in 6. All rolling toward her at once. 2 months ago, you just waved from your driveway, Tom said as people packed up. Now look at this. Sometimes bullies pick the wrong person. Brenda was about to learn that the hard way. Monday morning, Brenda's voice rang across the neighborhood like an alarm. She stalked her driveway at 7 a.m., phone to her ear, gesturing dramatically at anyone unfortunate enough to be outside. "I want an emergency board meeting tonight." I heard her snap. "Something's happening and I need legal protection." Through my window, I watched her try to rally support. Clara drifted over, nervous as always. Janet followed, looking uncomfortable. Even from a distance, you could see confidence slipping. By noon, every mailbox held an emergency assessment notice. $500 per household for immediate legal defense against outside agitators threatening our community governance. The letter claimed I was preparing a massive lawsuit against the HOA and demanded instant payment so Brenda could hire attorneys. What she didn't know. Tom was sitting in his car in the community center parking lot that evening, digital recorder rolling. His window cracked just enough. "They're looking into our finances," Brenda's voice crackled when Tom played it back later. "I don't know what they have, but we need to control the narrative before this spreads." "Brenda, maybe we should," Clara began. "No," Brenda snapped. "I built this community. I'm not letting them destroy it. If I have to leave town, fine. But I'm not going down alone." The sound quality was crystal clear. Mike's grin when he heard it could have lit up Willowbrook street lamps. Wednesday night, 2:47 a.m. The cameras caught Brenda in full costume. Black hoodie, black yoga pants, skulking around my property like a middle-aged ninja. She lugged a bag of supplies, a knife, spray paint, several small containers of motor oil, and staged them behind my garage. She carefully poured a little oil on the ground, slashed one of my tires, and took photos like she'd discovered a crime scene. The best part? She did it all under my motion-activated floodlight. Her face, her BMW's license plate, the contents of her bag crystal clear. Thursday morning, a code enforcement truck showed up. Apparently she'd already filed a report about environmental violations. The inspector found the little Home Depot-labeled oil containers exactly where she'd left them. "Ma'am," he said, exasperated. "Fresh motor oil on a driveway is not an environmental crime, and these still have price tags." He made careful notes. "Filing false environmental complaints is serious," he told her. "I'll be forwarding this to our fraud unit." That afternoon, Brenda took her meltdown to Facebook. The neighborhood watch group became her personal venting diary. Unhinged posts about outside agitators and people who don't share our values flooded the feed. Her 2 a.m. rant on Friday was almost a confession. Some people don't understand that communities have standards. When certain elements move in and change what made a neighborhood special, decent people have to protect their investments. Screenshot. Saved. Backed up. Forwarded to our lawyer. Saturday, she tried bribery. Carlos was installing cameras at Linda's house when Brenda marched up, envelope in hand. "I know Marcus is paying you to lie about me," she said, voice tight. $2,000 in cash if you forget those cameras and stop helping him." Carlos, bless him, kept tightening a bracket while his phone recorded in his pocket. "Ma'am, I'm just helping neighbors secure their property," he said. "You might want to talk to a lawyer." "I don't need lawyers," she snapped. "I need control back. That man has turned everyone against me with his stories. More evidence. More desperation." Sunday night capped the week with another 911 call. This time, she claimed I'd threatened her with a weapon in my driveway. The officers found me in the garage, elbow deep in a neighbor's transmission, 3 witnesses beside me. Officer Morgan's patience finally snapped. "Ma'am, this is your 4th false report in 2 weeks, he told her. "You keep this up, you're looking at charges." Monday, Sarah emailed the preliminary audit. Brenda hadn't stolen $78,000. It was closer to $96,000. She'd been padding every household's dues with phantom service charges and inflated vendor contracts. Little amounts at a time spread over 30 months. Short version, career criminal. Long pattern, out of road. On Tuesday at 2:33 a.m., she made her dumbest move yet. The HOA management office security system recorded the whole thing. Brenda using a stolen master key, barging in, and feeding financial records through an industrial shredder like she was trying to win a speed contest. The silent alarm triggered. Officer Rodriguez answered. He walked in to find her elbow deep in confetti. "Step away from the computer and put your hands where I can see them," he ordered. "You don't understand," she babbled as he cuffed her. "They're destroying everything I built. This community was perfect before they came." It smelled like burnt electronics and panic. Bail went up at $25,000. For Brenda, that might as well have been $25 million. She spent 3 days in County Orange, probably the first time she'd seen the inside of an institution she couldn't boss. While she was enjoying state hospitality, Clara did something unexpected. She visited Brenda in jail with a digital recorder in her purse. What she captured was pure gift. "I need your help," Brenda begged through the phone. "There's money in my garage behind the water heater. Cash. We can both disappear before this gets worse." I can't," Clara whispered. $50,000, Brenda pressed. "We start over somewhere new. They don't know us there." When Clara played that for us, Mike shook his head in disbelief. "Admission of theft, conspiracy, flight risk, obstruction," he said. "She just confessed to everything. In jail." Thursday night, the community center overflowed. 43 households showed up. People who'd never attended a meeting before were suddenly on the edges of their folding chairs, HOA notices in hand, anger hanging in the room like static. Tom walked everyone through Sarah's final audit. Total theft, $112,000 over 3 years. Phantom vendors, faked maintenance, kickbacks. "Every family in this room has been stolen from," Tom said. "Average, $2,800 per home." Gasped, swearing, disbelief morphing into fury. The vote of no confidence in Brenda's leadership was nearly unanimous. Only Janet abstained, eyes fixed on the floor. 33 households signed a demand for Brenda's immediate removal, criminal prosecution, and full restitution with interest. Friday morning, the circus came to town. Channel 7's news van arrived first. 2 more stations followed after getting wind of the story. Janet Mills interviewed neighbors like she'd struck Emmy Gold. HOA president arrested in massive embezzlement and harassment scandal. They aired my interview that evening. "This isn't about revenge," I told the camera. "It's about accountability. If people can abuse power with no consequences, nobody's safe." The story exploded online. #HOA Horror started trending. Messages poured in from people across the country with their own Brenda stories. Her brokerage suspended her real estate license immediately. Past clients started filing complaints. Her professional reputation turned radioactive. Her foreclosure went through with barely a whimper. Her house sold for $280,000, about 70 grand below market. Criminal investigations and camera crews aren't exactly great for bidding wars. Then came her 3 a.m. Facebook Live. Mascara streaked, voice shaking. She blamed everyone but herself. "I was just protecting the community," she wept. "Sometimes leaders have to make hard choices. No one appreciates what I sacrificed." Neighbors filled the comments with years' worth of receipts. Screenshots, emails, violation notices. She deleted the video later, but the internet forgets nothing. Her reign was over. Sentencing day was a crisp Thursday. The courthouse looked like it was hosting a block party. Over 40 Willowbrook residents filled Judge Patricia Hernandez's courtroom. Channel 7's cameras were set up for maximum drama. Brenda sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit that clashed violently with her hair, deflated beside her court-appointed attorney. This woman had once strutted around with a clipboard and a rulebook. Now she looked like a scarecrow someone had left in the rain. When the judge opened the floor for victim impact statements, I stood first. "Your Honor," I began. "This started when Ms. Wilson called 911 because I opened my own garage door. But it was never really about a car. It was about power. I talked about the pattern, the citations, the false reports, the nails, the letters, about how quickly a false accusation can escalate when you're a black man and someone like Brenda calls the cops. She didn't just steal our money," I said, looking at her. She stared straight ahead. "She stole our sense of safety in our own homes. She taught people to be scared of their neighbor instead of trust them." Tom spoke about the fear her letters and fines created. Sarah walked the court through the embezzlement. Linda explained what it meant for kids to watch adults stand up together. Then Brenda's attorney tried the sympathy route. Divorce, financial pressure, mental health, everything but accountability. "My client deeply regrets her actions," he insisted. "She's willing to make restitution and attend counseling." Brenda herself stood and delivered the same performance she'd been workshopping for months. "I never meant to hurt anyone," she sobbed. "I loved that community. I was trying to maintain standards and protect property values. Sometimes leadership means making unpopular decisions people don't understand." The mass eye roll in that courtroom was almost physical. Even her lawyer looked like he wanted blessed invisibility. Judge Hernandez had had enough. "Ms. Wilson," she said, voice cool. "In 30 years on this bench, I have rarely seen such sustained abuse of fiduciary responsibility, combined with racial harassment and deliberate intimidation." She studied Brenda like you'd study something unpleasant under glass. "You were entrusted with your neighbor's money and authority. You used both to enrich yourself and terrorize anyone who challenged you. You filed false police reports that could have ended in tragedy. You destroyed evidence. You tried to flee. And even now, you evade responsibility." Her gavel came down like a hammer. 4 years in state prison. Restitution in the amount of $112,000 plus court costs. 5 years supervised probation after release. The room erupted. Applause rolled through the benches. Not loud, but deep. 40 households releasing breath they'd been holding for years. As the deputy led her away in shackles, Brenda finally turned toward us. No remorse, no apology, just distilled hatred for people who dared to tell her no. On the courthouse steps, reporters swarmed. "Mr. Rodriguez, what would you say to other homeowners dealing with HOA abuse?" one asked, shoving a mic toward me. I thought about the past 3 months. The binders, the late-night meetings, the fear, the anger, the small victories. Document everything. Build community. Truth wins. I said. 6 words. They traveled farther than I ever would. 6 months after sentencing, Willowbrook Estates felt like a different zip code. Saturday mornings smelled like barbecue and fresh-cut grass instead of tension. Kids rode bikes without parents glancing nervously at front windows. Neighbors actually talked. The new HOA board, Tom as president, Sarah as treasurer, Mike handling legal, introduced radical concepts. Transparency, common sense. Monthly financials went online. Board meetings were announced in advance. Violation letters had to include photos and reasonable timelines for fixes. Nobody cared if your trash can sat out an extra hour. People actually helped each other drag them in. The derelict patch of land behind the clubhouse that Brenda had once declared restricted use became our community garden. Linda ran it like a military operation with soil charts and watering schedules, and people who'd barely exchanged nods were now trading tomato seedlings and chili peppers. Ironically, property values went up 15% since we took back the HOA. Turns out buyers like the phrase neighborhood that ousted corrupt HOA president more than HOA tyrant Harris's minority homeowners. Restitution trickled in across a year. Each family got back their stolen money plus interest. Watching people use that cash to pay down debt, fix roofs, or take long-delayed vacations felt like a correction in the universe. Through Clara, we got occasional updates on Brenda. She worked in the prison laundry for 60 cents an hour and shared a cell with someone doing time for armed robbery. Fitting. A group of film students from the State University turned our story into a documentary, Garage Door Justice. An American story. It won a regional festival and got national distribution. The appearance fees they sent me went straight into the Willowbrook Automotive Education Scholarship, funded, poetically, by Brenda's restitution payments. 3 teens had already gone to technical college on it. Watching Linda's nephew, Diego, walk across the stage with an automotive tech degree felt better than any trophy I'd ever won at a car show. My own life had shifted too. Sarah and I had been taking it slow for 4 months. Forensic accountant plus mechanic turned out to be a surprisingly compatible mix. We both appreciated systems, details, and the satisfaction of fixing broken things. The Camaro that started all of this became a minor celebrity. Classic car magazines featured it as the muscle car that beat an HOA Karen. I got ridiculous offers from collectors. I turned them all down. Some things aren't for sale, especially symbols. Most Sundays I still drove her to shows. I started bringing kids from the neighborhood. Carlos Jr. beaming as I showed him how to set valve lash while his dad watched. Worth more than any check. Our case started popping up in law journals and training sessions. Mike got invited to speak at CLE seminars about fiduciary duty for HOA boards. Our documentation methods turned into a template for community workshops across the country. The state legislature even passed the Willowbrook Act, mandating annual independent audits for all HOAs with budgets over $50,000. They invited a few of us to the bill signing for photos, but the real victory was knowing future Brendis would have a harder time. I started getting emails from all over. A retired Marine in Phoenix being harassed for parking his service truck in his own driveway. A widowed nurse in Ohio cited weekly for unsightly potted plants. A young black couple in Georgia threatened with liens over unauthorized patio furniture. Whenever I could, I jumped on calls. Pro bono. Shared what we'd learned. Document everything. Find allies. Know your bylaws, and don't fight alone. Back home, block parties became a monthly tradition. Long tables, potluck dinners, grill smoking, kids weaving between lawn chairs. Instead of fearful glances and whispered complaints, people swapped recipes, loaned tools, and planned projects. As I write this, I can hear Tom's mower humming next door and smell Linda's latest baking experiment drifting through my open garage door. It's the sound and smell of a neighborhood finally functioning the way it was supposed to. People choosing to look out for each other. Drop your HOA nightmare stories in the comments. Your paper trail and persistence might be the blueprint someone else needs. And if you want more proof that justice still works when ordinary people refuse to roll over, hit subscribe. Next week, Karen tries to steal a military veteran's service dog and finds out the hard way what federal offense means. From all of us here at HOA Stories, thanks for watching this full Brenda Wilson meltdown. If seeing a bully finally answer for everything made your day, like the video, leave a comment, and stick around. There's always another HOA Karen out there, and there's always a way to fight back.